Tell you something, being a man ain't no joke.
Toxic masculinity.
Bullying.
The Me Too movement against sex.
Hello, fellas, and welcome back to A Christian Male Perspective. My name is Andre, and here on this channel, we focus on how Christian men can move and operate in this world according to God's word. Today, we're going to take a deviation from the classic series and discuss dating versus courting. Look at some of the similarities and some of the differences between them. With that said, we know we got to do the YouTube thing. Please subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave a comment. Doesn't cost you a thing except for a little bit of time. I'll give you a second to do that. Without any further ado, fellas, let's get right into it. All right, fellas. So I've thought about how to go about doing this. And what makes sense to me is to have a comparison list. So on one side, you're going to have dating. On the other side, you're going to have courting. And how those two things relate to each other. In my mind, in my age, we dated. And what that really meant was you were seeing if this girl was a potential mate, if you will, if you were actually dating a girl. And it was very similar to the old-fashioned concept of courting. And things are a little different now. Things have changed over with technology, with the way the world has become more global. Things are different. So let's get into it and let's see how this fits into the general concept of Christian doctrine. And I'm going to take this from a general Christian doctrine and not look at any specific denomination, if you will, but from a general Christian doctrine perspective. All right, so on dating, especially nowadays, it seems to be very casual. And by casual, what I mean is that there is no specific end goal in mind. This conversation really did spark off between, I was having a talk with my son, who's 20 years old, about to get on his own, and my nephew, who's roughly 22. He was dating a girl, my nephew was, but they were not serious. They were just dating and have fun. And so dating is more casual. There's no end goal in mind. Now, one of the problems with dating, because there's no end goal in mind, is that it can lead to some confusion. Courting, however, is a bit different. When you're courting someone, you have an end goal and purpose in mind. And that is this person a suitable match for me to marry? Is this person someone suitable for me to pursue, to spend the rest of my life with? Dating tends to focus more on not being exclusive, if you will. You can date multiple people at the same time. With courting, you are exclusive. This is a committed, exclusive relationship. You can't court multiple people at the same time, if you will. Another difference between dating and courting is that because dating is so casual, you may end up dating multiple people, and you may date someone for a couple of weeks, and then you may not even date or see them anymore. And with that being said, your parents or your mentors may not be involved in that, in knowing about that person, or involved in you selecting that person to date, if you will. So there's no accountability to a higher authority, if you will, when you're just dating and having fun. When you're courting, you typically involve the parents of both people, both the guy and the girl, or at least if there are no parents around, the mentors, the spiritual mentors of the guy and the girl. So there is some accountability on this relationship. There's some accountability on the time that is being spent. And I don't want to gloss over that, because I think that's really important, because many times when people are when they're starting to court or become serious, if you will, there is a tendency to overlook red flags. And having parents and mentors, people who are concerned about your well-being and concerned about your future, having those people there to be able to spot out potential red flags, or even spot out potential green flags, good things that you may not even have noticed. Having that objective perspective, I think, is important. And yes, your friends, and I'm a guy, your homeboys, it's good to have their perspective too, But having someone who is a little older, who's a little more experienced, I think is very valuable. And that's something that courting does, as opposed to dating, where you can just date someone and go, and you don't have to you don't bring your mentors or your parents into that. Another thing that I've noticed, especially about culture today, is dating tends to be more about fulfilling your own needs, whether there's your physical needs, with sex, or your emotional needs, not being lonely, that wanting that companionship. That's where people tend to use dating to fill those voids. That's what I've seen on social media. It tends to be the case. As opposed to when you're courting someone, you're focused on serving and bringing out the best in the other person to see if they're, again, a potential lifelong match for you. So because of that, you're not just focused on getting whatever itch, emotional, physical, whatever you need, scratched. You're focused on, okay, can I bring out the best of this person? And is this something that I like? Is this something I can see spending the rest of my life with? So because there is a purpose and the end goal in mind, with courting, you're not focusing on just your needs and your wants, if you will. With that other said, that kind of leads into this concept of this Netflix and chill culture, or we used to call it friends with benefits and no commitment. And you guys, you know what I'm talking about. The booty calls, just going over and saying, hey, just casually having sex, if you will. And that's one of the things that I think courting does, because you can date someone and sex is usually a part. When people say they're dating, sex is generally a part of that. But when you're courting, it allows, especially courting according to God's word. When you're pursuing young men, a lady according to God's words, you're going to want to put boundaries into place to not only protect yourself, but to protect her as well. And what I mean by that is, you're off and you're pursuing this young lady. You see someone, you're forming a relationship with her. Once you have sex with someone, you are giving a piece of yourself to them. And that's a whole nother conversation that we're going to need to have about that. But with that being said, now let's say it doesn't work out. You decide you guys are not getting married. You've given us a portion of yourself to someone else that you can never get back. And now when you meet the next lady and she is the one, you've given away something that you can never get back. Likewise, you've taken something from that girl, the first girl, that she can never get back. So when she meets her spouse, she meets her lifelong partner, there's a piece of her that she's given away that she can never get back. Guys, I know it's not easy, it's not fun, but setting those boundaries about what is acceptable behavior, what is unacceptable behavior, according to God's word, will save you from so much trouble down the road. With that said, it kind of leads into this next thing. We talked about having a relationship. When people date, many times yes, there's a filling out process. And we'll talk about the kind of the linear aspect of that, of dating to courting to marriage. But many times when people are dating, like I said, they seem to be wanting to fulfill their own needs. And one of those big needs we talked about is emotional companionship, the sense of loneliness. Guys, the pandemic has separated us, right? We've isolated more because of it. And people are experiencing higher senses of anxiety and loneliness. That's just a fact. That the sense of dating with the dating apps, it gives people a sense of connection without any commitment. And that seems to be some of what dating is involved with, just having a companion. I've seen stories on social media where the girl says she'll date a different guy every weekend because, she gets the meal and she wants to go and, experience something and have fun with someone. Likewise, I've seen where we have went out and we've dated multiple girls, generally to have sex. Let's just be honest. Let's talk about for what it is. And in both of those cases, it's for you're being more self-centered about that relationship. You're being more self-centered about it. Yes, you can say, well, if both people are like that, then it's okay. No, because you're giving away part again, like I said, you're giving away parts of yourself, and you're cheating the other person in a sense, um, from getting a full, rich relationship. Now, with courting, you're more focused on developing a deeper friendship that could lead to marriage. That's the one of the focuses of courting, is focusing on developing that deep friendship. As I said before, trying to bring out the best in that other person. Now, that's difficult to do. It's not necessarily easy because it takes time, it takes commitment, it takes a emotional investment on your part. Whereas many people with dating, there is no commitment. Again, they're friends with benefits with no commitments, right? There is no emotional investment involved. When you start bringing emotional investment involved, things can get more difficult, no doubt. But it will be worth it for you in the end because you're living life with a purpose and not just kind of where it goes back and forth and strings you along. One other difference between dating and courting is dating can lead to what I what's called relationship confusion. At least that's the way I think about it. I've seen on social media where guys and girls have been dating for 5 to 10 years. And in that time, there's been no commitment. Well, you can say, well, they committed, they stood together for 10 years. Yeah. And then one of them walks away. And many times, guys, it's us. And I'm just being blunt, we will use a girl during her prime years. And then towards that 30 age or so, we start bouncing and looking for something else. Whereas there may be one or two children that are still there. And because there was no commitment, there was no marriage, now she's having to pick up the pieces. And in some cases, it's the girl. I've seen situations and on social media where the girl has not wanted to get married. She wanted, and this blew my mind. She wanted the babies, but she did not want the commitment of marriage. And to me, that makes little to no sense to me up here. Is why would you want the responsibility of bringing life into the world without a committed partner, a husband beside you if you're a young lady? Yeah, so that's happened. But I've seen where in guys, and we're guilty of this. And I'm talking to us guys because we have responsibility for ourselves, regardless of what the lady does, regardless of what other people, we have responsibility for ourselves. So that's why I focus on talking to guys more. Guys, don't string a girl along. Don't date a girl for 5 years. I say this is my personal opinion, but I believe that most guys will know if they want to marry a girl within generally 6 months to a year. We'll have it kind of figured out, okay, I can see myself long term with this girl. Guys, unless there's other particular reasons why, unless there's specific reasons why you're not going to marry her after you make that determination, don't string the girl along. That's doing you no good, and it's not doing her any good. It's doing harm, actually more harm to her than you realize. Again, with courting, there is an intentionality with the relationship. There's much less confusion because you're dating with the purpose to determine, are we getting married? Right? Is this a potential lifelong mate I can see myself with? So because of that clarity in purpose, clarity and focus, you don't have this, am I going to get married? Am I not? Do I need to drop another hint to see if he's going to say commit, as a girl, do I need to drop down on a knee and ask him to marry me? When you're courting, that type of confusion is gone because you're both going in with a specific purpose of determining, is this the right person for me? And doing that, and this is something else to talk about with the relationship clarity. The boundaries that you set up, and when we talked about particularly physical boundaries before, well, there is financial boundaries that you need to think about, guys. I've seen too many not divorce courts, but people courts, with, Judge Judy and those things where people have been living together and things got all mixed up. They weren't married and now they're separated, and it is some of the messiest, craziest things that you've heard. So when you're courting with someone, when you're dating, those boundaries are generally not set. And guys, again, we're coming from a Christian perspective. Two couples, if you're dating, you shouldn't be living together. That just causes, you're playing married. Let's just be honest. You're playing married. That's what you're doing. You're playing married. But when you're courting, you have the opportunity because you brought spiritual mentors into the situation. Not only can you set physical boundaries, but you can also set financial boundaries, right? Who's going to pay for what, right? In one of my previous videos, I talk about a guy being 100% and not living a 50-50 lifestyle. And that's really geared towards once you are married. Let me make that clear. Once you are married, in my opinion, the guy should strive to provide all of the needs for the family. And anything the wife can bring in will be supplemental. It can help. Again, pay down debt if there's debt. Go and build the nest egg up. That's my idea. And we'll talk about that more later on. But as far as the boundary from financial standpoint, who's paying for what? Who's paying for dates? Is the guy expected to pay for most of the dates? Are you guys doing it while you're dating or you're recording? Are you splitting it in some form of fashion? How much is each person saving for the marriage? Is there a certain nest egg that you guys are trying to accomplish before you get married? By having those spiritual mentors in your life, you can build a good structure and foundation for your relationship, which would be the foundation for your marriage if it goes that far. Now, with that being said, because of the emotional investment, because of the financial investment that's involved in courting, breaking up when you're courting can be much more difficult than breaking up when you're just dating. Why? Because when you're dating, you don't have both people are not having that deep emotional connection towards each other. When you're courting, you're intentionally building that connection, that deep friendship to see, is this person meant for me? And yes, so that means that breakups with courting can be a lot more tougher, but going in that because of that purpose, you and this person was not meant to be married. And therefore you can go ahead and move on and be intentional about your next steps in your life. So with all of that said, I think there is a place for dating. And let me define what I mean. By dating, what I'm talking about is spending a little time with someone to determine if this is someone you can see potentially investing in for courting, right? This is, again, I'm talking about from a guy's perspective. You can date someone to see, and this is, again, usually within, I will give it, 3 to 6 months, you can date one person to say, okay, is this person someone I can see going potentially further with? And again, that's still with a purpose, right? And even if you're dating a couple of 2 or 3 different girls to try to see if one of them is a potential match for you. One, you're still setting those boundaries in place so that you're still walking according to God's words. And those are primarily physical boundaries about no sex and about how much kissing is allowed, right? So you're still setting those boundaries in place to protect your spiritual manhood and her spiritual womanhood. But if you're going to be dating more than one person at a time, be upfront with them. Hey, I'm dating, I'm marriage minded, I want to get married. So I'm dating to see who God has out there. I'm trying to find my wife, if you will. And that leads us primarily into our scriptures. In Proverbs 18:22, the wise writer says, he who finds a wife, what is good and receives favor from the Lord. So men, when we're at that point where we want to get married, we should be out looking for our wife. We should be out looking for our wife. And what that means is that we're going out with the purpose and intention. Okay, I'm spending time with you to determine if I want to invest more in you to see if you're my wife. And again, that is an intentional mindset you have. If there are people that you want to just have fun with, you just want to go to a movie with here or there, sure, there's nothing wrong with that. Again, putting those clear physical boundaries in place, but be upfront with this person. Let them know, hey, I just want to go to the movies with you. I'm not trying to do anything else. I want to go, let's go to the movies, let's have fun. I got some clear boundaries that I want to establish so that there's no confusion or no misunderstanding between us. Next proverb is 31:10. It says, an excellent wife who can find. She is far more precious than jewels. Guys, I know marriage may not seem popular today, but if you can find an excellent wife, again, a husband is looking for his wife. If you can find an excellent wife, she is worth more than precious jewels. But you have to go out there and you have to look with a purpose. You don't, rarely do you just stumble upon them. It happens, but I would not want to take, especially if I was a young man today, and what I advise my son and my nephews, don't take that chance. Be intentional about going and looking and finding a wife when you're ready to find that wife. The last verse comes from Genesis 2:24. It's a very common verse for people to hear. It says, that is why a man leaves his father and mother and is united to his wife, and they become one flesh. Think about it, guys. If you were to cut your arm off, it would hurt. You get poked in the eye, it hurts. Just like when you and your wife become one flesh, what happens to her happens to you. What happens to you, what happens to her. That's that concept of a deep, that relationship is so deep and so connected that you can't even see a difference. They become, sorry about the mic, guys. They become one flesh. So guys, yes, is there a place in dating? Yes, I think dating has its place. As long as you set the right physical boundaries, you set financial boundaries, and you do it, again, with the purpose of looking for your wife. Is this someone I want to invest in courting? Again, if you just want to go and have fun, you just want to go to the movies, just want to go out to dinner, there's nothing wrong with that. Again, keep those boundaries in place so that you can be a man of God that's worthy of the calling God has put on your life. All right, guys. This is Andre. I know I hit the mic a couple of times on that, working on things, but I hope you take this, guys, to heart. If you take this advice, I believe, in my opinion, that it will help set you up for success in the future. Yes, it's going to require us as men to check our physical boundaries, to put some control, and again, we talked about self-control, to put some self-control on our bodies and on our minds. But fellas, we can do this. By God's Holy Spirit, we can do this. And I challenge each of us to live with that type of purpose. If we do, we will affect our communities going forward in such a positive way that years and generations down will see that positive effect of us living in a way that's approved by God today. All right, guys, this is Andre again from a Christian male perspective. Stay sharp, fellas. Thank you for watching today's video. Please like it, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. You can follow us on social media at A Christian Male Perspective. Stay sharp, fellas.